Did you know that more than 2/3 of couples report lower marital satisfaction when a baby arrives? On today's episode, we're joined by Beth Goss and discuss the highs and lows that come with pregnancy and baby birth on relationships. Beth shares all kinds of helpful tips related to the most common challenges that couples face after having a baby, from lack of sleep to lack of attention and the changes in sexual intimacy. There's no doubt about it. Having a baby changes your marriage, and it takes more attention to strengthen your connection. Beth Goss is a certified Gottman educator and a training specialist for the Bringing Baby Home program. She is also a full-time faculty member at North Seattle College, where she teaches parent education and child development classes to families raising children birth to 5 years. Additionally, she was previously employed by Swedish Medical Center to teach childbirth, postpartum, and sibling classes. She has authored several articles and has been interviewed for several podcasts discussing the transition to parenthood. Beth is originally from Queens, New York, but has called Seattle home for 31 years. She lives there with her husband and loves it when her adult kids visit. We hope you enjoy the show. Hey there, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Stronger Marriage Connection podcast. I'm Dr. Dave here at Utah State University alongside our psychologist, Liz Hale. Liz, are you ready today?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Oh man, Liz, we're so excited. Our mission with this podcast, as you know, is to bring you the best resources and tips and tools and bring on the experts to help you create the marriage of your dreams. And I'm super excited about our guest today. She's a professor in Seattle and a certified Gottman educator and training specialist for the Bringing Baby Home program. We're huge fans of the Gottmans and all that they offer. Welcome to the show, Beth Goss.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Lovely
thank you. But now, Beth, today we're talking about the transition to parenthood for couples. And we want to focus specifically on how parenthood can affect the marriage relationship. And as we like to call it here on the podcast, how it affects the marriage connection. So, well, can we rewind a bit and start with maybe the couple discussion on bringing a baby into this world in the first place? Sometimes babies are planned. Sometimes they're a bit of a surprise. Do you have some tips for let's call it the parenthood discussion? In other words, let's say, one or possibly both partners have been thinking about having a baby, but maybe not sure how to bring it up with the other person. It's a pretty big discussion, right? So do you have some tips on starting that discussion?
Yeah, for sure. So ideally, that it's not going to be a surprise for either, right? Ideally, this is something that has come up in various ways, maybe casually, maybe a little more seriously. We know that couples who are doing well, communicating well, they do something called making love maps. And basically, love maps are like a roadmap to your partner's inner world. So it's asking, where do you see us in 5 years, right? That it can come up that way. It's just learning your partner's likes and dislikes. And so when couples deepen those, when they continue to ask them, they're starting to pull this information in anyway, right? But let's say it's one person in the couple decides, okay, I want to have this conversation. I'm thinking about this now. First off, you'd want to make sure that you pick the right time. So not a time when you're both busy, when you're about to leave the house, when one of you's in a bad mood, right? Just when things are kind of calm. And then doing it really gently, bringing it up as an idea. Like, I've been thinking a lot about the future lately, and I wanted to talk about starting a family. What do you feel needs to be in place for us to start moving with that, right? Because that's really the question. It's not, I want to have kids, I don't want to have kids, or I'm not ready to have kids. It's why. And sometimes that's, I don't have a lot of job security right now. And so while I do want to have children, I don't think this is the best time to do it, or, some kind of version of that. And so it really gets to, where is your partner at with their feelings around this? And is it a good time? And do we both agree?
Yeah. So timing, it's not late at night. And then Gottman talks about the soft startup and just, the questions. Where are we at? Where are we kind of future? I love that love map concept. So really getting on the same page, introducing the idea and just seeing where the other person's at, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I like that. This discussion, you alluded to it, I think, Beth and Dave both, that probably should start before we get married. Beth, do you see that? Is this ever a deal breaker for couples? I was a little surprised. Where I'm coming from is in my own family, I didn't realize that someone married her husband and he really did not want to have children. And she knew that, but she thought, oh, this will just work out anyway. Right.
Exactly.
And so I won't share too much about them, but it has been a hard road. Let's just say that. They did go ahead and have children. And it's been a hard road in a way that I didn't really understand until recently. What do you think about deal breakers?
I definitely see that. And I again, ideally, those deal breakers are discussed before you commit, right? And there are definitely people who go into it thinking, well, I can change them. Like they may feel this way now at, 28, but I bet they're going to be ready for it in a few years. And that's not always a realistic thing. And I've also seen folks change their minds. So, getting married with the plan of starting a family, and somewhere along the way, something happens where one partner feels like, you know what, I don't know that I want to do this. I really like our life the way it is. So it can be tricky.
It can be tricky. And sometimes those couples break up, I suppose. And other times, just, I guess, their no's have it. Is that kind of what you see? Yeah.
I mean, you want a shared vision for your future, right? And that's always changing, which goes back to deepening love maps. I may know what my partner wanted when he was 25, but here we are now 35. And if I don't keep asking questions, I'm not going to know that they've had a change of heart.
Yeah, good point. And we do change, right?
Yeah, everybody does.
We do change all the time, even though some people say, I promise I'm not going to change. It is a bit of a gamble, though, to hope that a partner is going to change one way or the other, especially when it comes to something so important as becoming parents. Mm-hmm. So let's fast forward a bit and let's say, okay, now this said couple is expecting, a baby's on the way. Can you please give us a little bit of insight from the program, the Gottman program, about how pregnancy can affect a couple's relationship and connection? And do you have tips for each partner? There's so many changes, right? Hormonally and health and sickness, sexual relationship changes, mood, irritability.
Definitely. It's a huge change, right? Being pregnant, having one of you be pregnant. And we've seen, for some couples, they get a lot closer. It's almost like it's their second honeymoon. They'll come to a Bring Baby Home workshop and we talk about conflict and they'll say like, we don't really have any. We've worked everything out. So they're just feeling really close. They have this like shared vision of the future, something they're working towards together. They're doing tangible things like painting the room the baby's going to be in together and picking the color and buying clothing and putting a crib together. So there's a lot of that. And I also see partners just displaying a lot of care towards their pregnant partner, right? So being very careful around them, watching out for them, right? So in some cases and some of the time, it really helps a couple get closer working on this shared, plan. And also, it can be really hard on a relationship. I've seen money issues come up a lot around this. So sometimes there'll be some dissatisfaction because one partner's worried that, my partner's going to take some time off from earning, or maybe indefinitely. Now all the pressure's on me to have to do that. And that can cause stress between the two because it redefines roles a little bit. Sometimes we'll see jealousy too during pregnancy, and it can go both ways. The pregnant partner may feel really jealous of their non-pregnant partner because their life hasn't changed that much, realistically. And they can, go out after work and they can have a glass of wine if they want to, and like all of these things. And they're not having to think about the pregnancy all the time, right? It's not following them around. And then we see non-pregnant partners feeling some jealousy potentially as well, because all the attention is around the pregnancy, right? And the baby shower and the classes, everything seems to be very pregnancy focused, and they are not pregnant. So sometimes some jealousy will kind of go in there. Of course, you brought up hormones. Those are all over the place, and that can cause a lot of irritability or weepiness. And, another thing that I see sometimes is perceived levels of effort during pregnancy. They already start to think about or be upset about, well, I'm doing X. Why aren't they doing Y? I'm putting more effort into this. And that can be stuff around the house. Like, I feel like I'm always the one who's making the shopping list and cooking the food. Or it can be, they don't even know the name of the gynecologist or where we're delivering, so that can kind of play into it as well. And then I think you also brought up, intimacy and sex tend to change during pregnancy because it's a different experience for both people. It feels different to some extent. There's lower levels of energy. There are perceptions about, our bodies and our partner's bodies. So it's a really, really big change. And typically couples are going to have like a little from column A and a little from column B, right? It's just everything. It's harder and it's exciting for most.
And so what do you suggest that they do with these differences? How do we talk about them? Yes.
Yeah. So I think my advice for like the person who's pregnant and the person who's not pregnant, they're going to sound contradictory, but they're not. So for the person who isn't pregnant, the non-pregnant partner, I think a big piece of advice is don't wait to be asked. Don't wait for your partner to say, could you do X? Or I'm feeling uncomfortable. Could you do, you know what I mean? Like, try to anticipate some of these things. And it can be as simple as when you're going to the refrigerator to get yourself, something to drink, just bring something to drink for your partner. You don't even need to ask, right? Or if they're looking uncomfortable doing a task and it's not your turn to do that task, do it anyway. Right?
Pregnant or not, right? Pregnant or not.
Pregnant or not. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think Dr. Gottman calls it, I think, like grunt work, or I forget exactly how he terms it. It's basically if you're noticing that it's harder for your partner to do the thing, whatever the thing is, just do it for them. It's a big relief for them, and it's not that big of a deal for you, right? And then I think advice or tips for the pregnant partner, and this is where it's going to sound the opposite, would be, don't expect your partner can read your mind. So it's a little bit of both. You have to put some effort into it. They can't know how you're feeling and what you need at any given moment. And they're going to put the effort into trying to do that. And you need to be really clear about what you need and what you want when you feel like you can, right? So it may be, I know we were planning on watching a movie tonight, but I'm exhausted. And I'm just going to go and read a little bit and go to sleep. And I know that wasn't our plan, but that's what I'm needing right now. Right. So, I think the key for both of them really is communication and being like tuned in to their partner is going to help.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in.
Yeah. That mindful awareness really about what the other person needs. I love that. And then having compassion, one of my favorite words, seeing what do they need, but then also voicing that. Sometimes I remember my wife was pregnant. We have 4 children, and just not knowing. And so when she would say, okay, I need this, but the key for us was what we call it the 3 T's, watching our temper, tongue, and tone, the tone of voice in which it is said. Sometimes when we're irritated and we'll say something, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, let me get this for you. So it was some understanding and some back and forth that we really had to go. Okay, now let's fast forward a little bit more. Now, couples is excited about the baby. Maybe they've taken these classes that you're talking about, which we'll get into, and they have a space set up for the new baby. Maybe meals are ready and they're ready to go, and the baby's born. And then for many couples, there's this, amazing, birthing experience, hopefully for most couples, and they have this magical, I know it was for us, it's just like life-changing awe type of experience. But then there's this increase in stress and this kind of decrease in happiness. Sleep is affected. There's more hormones that are going on. And there tends to take this hit in relationship satisfaction in that couple relationship. What causes the dip when we becomes 3, if you will?
Yeah, definitely. So Gottman and his team have studied this, obviously, and studied lots and lots and lots of couples who are new parents. There's actually a pilot study that they started late 90s and did kind of early to mid 2000s. And what they found, some of the data from that was 67% of new parents are less satisfied with their relationship after they have a baby. That's the norm, basically. So I think one thing is just having people understand it's not you. It doesn't mean something's wrong with your relationship or anything you're doing. This is kind of a normal expectation after you have a baby because there's so much juggling, right? Certain things happen. Changes in identity is a really big one. So you go from being somebody's child, somebody's daughter, somebody's son, and then all of a sudden today you're somebody's mom or somebody's dad. And that's huge, right? A friend tells a story of being released from the hospital after having a baby and filling out some paperwork. This was quite some time ago. And in the space where it said mother's name, what do you think she wrote?
Oh,
her mother's name, right? And I'll always remember that story because it's just so classic. It's like, oh, wait, no, oh my gosh, I'm the mom. And on top of that, you wake up in the morning next to somebody's dad or somebody's mom. And that's a weird thing too, right? So it takes a while, I think, to really figure out that new identity and have that balance work. I know for myself, my kids are in their 20s, and there are definitely times where I look at them and I think about myself and I think, oh my gosh, when they think of mom, they're thinking of me. That's so weird, So it just kind of it goes on. This identity thing is huge. Relationships change. We know from lots of research that conflict goes up after you have a baby, and communication tends to go down, and satisfaction with your relationship tends to go down. So that's all happening right in the beginning. And then there are physical and psychological changes. Dave, you brought up sleep. That's a huge piece to this puzzle. None of us function very well when we're tired. And after you have that baby, at least one of you is not getting very much, or you're getting, a 2-hour stretch, and then you're up and having to figure things out and change a diaper and feed in the dark and then get the baby to go back to sleep, over and over and over again, as you both know. And sometimes there's some resentment in that if a parent feels like, well, I'm the one getting up all the time because they're working for money. So they need their sleep, so some of that kind of brews as well. And we just don't make good decisions and are not super rational when we're chronically tired, because it's not just one night. It's for a long time, potentially, right? Months and months for some. And then, physically also and psychologically, sex and intimacy decline. They just do. And we can talk about that more a little bit later, but that's definitely a challenge for couples in terms of their satisfaction. Things are different for them, and what they're used to and their patterns, it's out the window now because everybody's tired. The baby is maybe sleeping in your room, right next to your bed. You maybe one of you doesn't feel very desirable, maybe, right? Or has low libido. And partners who watch the birth sometimes think of their partner then differently afterward. It's just all of this stuff.
It's complicated.
So it's complicated. And sex and intimacy is something that it takes some time to reconfigure how do we want this to work. That definitely causes dissatisfaction in some kind of new parents' relationships.
I can imagine some of these new parents listening going, so you say it takes a while. How long? How long are we talking about, right?
Whoa. I don't know if you want to ask that question.
And it might be different for every couple.
It's different for everybody. I mean, there are some kids who are like, quote unquote, good sleepers, right?
Yeah.
And it's really, that's not an issue. And I guess what I would say is it takes effort. So all of these things kind of naturally happen for most families when they have a new baby. And then it's okay if that's what's normally naturally going to happen. Now, what do we do? How do we kind of bring it back to where we want it to be? And it's going to be different. It won't be the same, but what kind of effort do we need to put in so that we feel pretty good about each other again?
Yeah, good for you. And you said 67%, is that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that really normalizes this, doesn't it? For anybody listening,
Right.
thinking, oh my gosh, what's wrong with us? Sounds like it's
Right.
just a completely normal adjustment. What else do you have for couples who might be struggling? What other strategies, please, Beth, on building a supportive relationship after the baby arrives?
Right. So we talk about just a whole bunch of different strategies during the Bring Baby Home workshop for couples. And some of the things we cover: deepening love maps. We've already talked about that. Just like staying in touch with your partner and where they're at mentally, right? Showing fondness and admiration for your partner is another one, because we often think positive things like, oh, I'm so glad he folded laundry. But if you don't say it to them, you don't really get any points for it, right? So couples tend to do really well and feel pretty satisfied when they're saying nice things about each other to each other on a real regular basis. You know, we call the motto of our program is small things often. It's just like little things over and over. It's not grand gestures of a big vacation or a big birthday present, which are lovely, of course, but it's just the little things every single day. So noticing that stuff, verbalizing it, super helpful for new parents. And I think going hand in hand with that would be noticing bids that your partner makes. And a bid is just a way of expressing a need, right? And so we express needs for communication and emotional support and intimacy and understanding. Kind of the list goes on. Taking the effort, like making the effort to really notice when your partner's making a bid. And we know that most couples who are doing well, right, they miss most of the bids that they each other throw out. It's really hard to do because you're trying to juggle your whole life. So spending a little extra effort at noticing, oh, you've asked me to go on a walk and I don't feel like going on a walk, but you're asking me to go on a walk because you want to connect with me. Maybe I could go on that walk and see how that is, right? So watching for those bids. We also talk about how we handle conflict. And the goal in relationship, of course, is not to avoid conflict. That doesn't make for a great relationship. It's just, how do you handle it? How do you regulate the conflict in your relationship? And so we do spend a good amount of time on that as well, because conflicts are going to come up. And we talk about things like the gentle startup. How do you bring up a problem? How do you really understand where your partner's coming from? When they tell you what is bothering them, are you just thinking about what you're going to say next? Or are you really listening to them and reflecting on it, and then can reflect back and say, you know what, I kind of get why you would feel that way, right? So they feel heard. And coming to compromise too. Arguing isn't about a winner and a loser, although I think a lot of couples think that it is. It's about compromise. So you both want to get something that you want out of this discussion, and you're probably not going to get everything you want out of the discussion. Other strategies. I mean, just like maintaining a positive perspective on your relationship is important. And we find that couples who continue to make those love maps, notice the stuff they like about each other and tell them, notice bids, they tend to have a positive perspective. And a positive perspective is basically giving your partner the benefit of the doubt. So if they're late, it's not immediately thinking they're, taking advantage of your time, or it's just giving them the benefit of the doubt. We're coming to this with good intent, for the most part, right? And so let's take a pause on getting upset so quickly. Preserving intimacy is another really important one. We talked about that a little bit, but it can be hard to do for the reasons that I brought up. But intimacy doesn't have to be sexual intimacy, right? And often that's a good way to start with new parents because they are really tired and the baby is really close by a lot of the time. So a ritual of connection might just be after the baby goes to sleep, we're going to put on some television, we're going to hold hands, or probably one or both of us will pass out. But it's just something that we do to just connect with each other. And when you have that connection in a variety of ways and feel understood by your partner, intimacy tends to follow, right? And if you can just kind of keep talking about it. And I guess the last thing I would say would be just like creating a shared vision of your future, right? What do we want? What do we want holidays to look like in our house? We all come from our own, families of origin. We all have different ideas of what things are supposed to be. So what do holidays look like? What does our free time look like? What does spending time with the kids look like, right? So continuing to have these bigger open-ended conversations about just what are we building together rather than siloing, I think really helps couples stay connected.
Man, these tips are just so great, Beth, and so important and so needed. So I hope our listeners really are digesting these, and it's easier said than done. I know for me, Beth, as a new dad, there would be times where, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to be patient and sacrifice, but I was a conflict avoider. And I thought, I just avoid this. And if I can just help and serve. But then I got into it felt like this martyr, syndrome of, I'm just giving up all of this. It's for her. It's for the good of the baby. And looking back, I guess I wish I would have, this one of those dad, looking back in the transition, been more open in communication, not critical or anything, but just talking about it instead of kind of the not maybe silent treatment, but I just avoid anything at all costs. Just keep things going smoothly. I don't want to ruffle anything. So if it goes this way, then it's fine. Do you see that? Especially, I don't know, with men, kind of feeling where do I fit in
Where's
here?
My role here?
Definitely. Again, because the focus tends to be on the person who had the baby, right? There's so much around that, and it's very easy to get like squeezed out. Kind of, maybe their like sister or mom comes to help take care of the baby. And it's like, well, okay, I'll just go do, something else because you got that covered. So it can feel really isolating, I think, for partners, for sure.
Yeah. I know I felt some of that. And then, man, we had 2 years apart. So I remember when they were like 6, 4, 2 and a newborn. And I literally remember thinking, I wonder if I will ever sleep through the night again. Like that thought actually went through my head that I don't remember the last time I slept through the night. And that affects both of us. I remember the time.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Lack of sleep, I can't emphasize enough. And if you've gone through it, you already know. When I teach my parenting classes and I work with parents who have infants, but also have 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, different classes, that's always something they ask about is sleep. It's not like the first 3 months are pretty tough, but then you figure it out. Things happen, kids teething, kids have nightmares. Sleep gets disrupted and it's really hard.
So knowing that this too shall pass, is that what you're both saying?
Yeah, it was kind of that long-term view, which you shared with Beth at the end. It was that kind of that shared meaning, this is, and I remember my parents saying, Dave, just enjoy every phase. And I don't think I understood it at the time because it's like, here, Grandma, you enjoy them, right? This is
right,
hard.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
it was really
you get
tough.
to give them back, I have to keep them. Yeah.
Yeah, that was tired. Yeah, with accidents or people, kids thrown up in the bed, and you're like, what is going on? So it was about, we had really had to intentionally make time for connection, because if we didn't, we would just naturally drift apart. We didn't have to say anything mean and nasty, Beth. We would just naturally drift apart because of the busyness. We had to say, okay, we've got to create Friday night. We will go into debt, even if we need to pay a babysitter, because this is an investment in our relationship. That relationship connection has to be important.
Right, right. I call it like going from soulmates to roommates.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wind up running the business of your family together. Like, you go walk the dog, I'll get dinner started. Can you take him to practice? Like, it's just making sure things flow until everyone goes to sleep. And that's not why you got married. You got married because you love each other and you're best friends and you have fun together. And that often is a big chunk of what's missing after you have kids. So it takes a lot of effort, I think, to make sure it's still part of things, even if it's, because money is an issue, certainly for lots of folks, but it might be, well, grandparents live in town, and on Saturday mornings when the baby's napping, grandparents come over and we go take a walk and go get brunch. It doesn't have to be like we're going to go to dinner and a movie kind of thing, because no one's got energy for that anyway. It's just figuring out for you, how can you connect and have a little time away from the baby, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, so important. And Beth, we're so grateful that there are programs like the Bringing Baby Home program. Can you tell us a little bit more, the program itself and lessons? Where do people find it? Because I can see now listeners are like, man, yes, we need to do this. How do they go about it?
Yeah. So the Bringing Baby Home program is really the only like research-based and research-tested program like this that I know of at all. It's typically a 12-hour workshop, and it's offered different ways. So some folks will do, 2 Saturdays in a row. Some people offer the class that way, or maybe over the course of 3 days or in the evening. So there are lots of different formats for it, right? There's also live virtual that a lot of us started doing once the pandemic hit. Because you weren't getting big classrooms full of expectant parents together. So we've been able to adapt to doing this virtually and still live, right? So that we can have those conversations and do those activities. And then we've also recently come out with like a self-paced, on-demand type of a class that you can sign up for as well. And so, that you do it on your own time. You do it when you're able. It takes as long or as short as you need it to. You don't have class members there to, to vibe with, right? And share experiences, and you don't have an instructor to ask questions of. And it's all of the material. So everyone, learns differently and has different amounts of time that they can dedicate to this stuff. So if folks look at Gottman.com, there's a listing of all the classes. You can also really easily Google like Bring Baby Home near me. And it's everywhere. We, my co-facilitator, Joni Parthamer, and I have been training folks for years and years. And we have people from all over the world come to take these classes to learn how to bring it back to their community. So it's everywhere. It's really exciting.
Oh, that is great. We'll be sure to put that link. That's Gottman.com. And then the program, again, is Bringing Baby Home. So Googling that, finding a class or a virtual class or getting online and taking these classes, we highly recommend it to our listeners. Or if you're a parent and your child is pregnant or has a partner that is pregnant, wow, please think about maybe a gift, some way of getting them enrolled. So thank you.
Yeah, I was, for many years, I was a childbirth educator and breastfeeding educator. So I taught a lot of the hospital stuff anyway. And I always had folks coming back to me after baby saying, I took all the classes, and the best, most important class I took was Bringing Baby Home. Birth is a day or two if you're lucky. This is a lifetime. This is planning what do we want our family to be like, and how do we want our family to function? And it's the materials you need for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks, Beth. Hey, one question we'd like to ask each of our guests is, what do you think is the key for a stronger marriage connection?
Yeah, I really think it's about friendship. I think daily effort on both parts, for both people, on maintaining your friendship, then the rest can come. But if you don't have that, it's very hard to feel close to the other person.
Yeah. Oh man, that key to friendship. Yeah, and I know the Gottman research is all about that, backing that up. Fantastic. Hey, before we let you go, we like to ask another question of each of our guests, and that is, what is your takeaway of the day? What's the takeaway, Beth, that you hope our listeners will remember from our discussion?
Yeah, the takeaway, I suppose, as like aside from the importance of friendship, is really, this is important for your kids. So we want to have important relationships. We want to have close relationships for us, of course. But the research around this is, how does it affect children to grow up in a home where parents aren't getting along? And so these are all of these tools so that your kid does better. So I think the big takeaway is spending time on yourself and spending time on your relationship isn't selfish. It's really important for the health of your family as a whole.
I love it. Yeah. Liz, what do you think? What's your takeaway today?
Well, I think, my takeaway might even be just our pre-conversation, if you don't mind, Dave and Beth. I loved knowing that there's this free app, the Gottman card deck, of course, but now what's been added is card decks underneath those first 14 cards is for any couple. Now we've added those for bringing baby home, those for couples who are in this new stage of life. And I love them. I think those cards are just so well done about how to ask each other questions, how to make sure that you really are tapping into each other and keeping that friendship going strongly. Yeah. And what about you, Dave? What's your greatest takeaway from our interview today with Beth Goss?
Man, I like the concept of intentionality. You can't just drift through this. You have to be mindfully aware. That means paying attention to the other person. And that, as I like to say, right, lack of attention leads to loss of connection. When we're not actively paying attention to the needs, what's happening, the changes that are going on, when we get caught up on our own kind of story and turn inward, kind of like I was doing with that martyr, it's not healthy. We may even be thinking, I'm avoiding conflict, so it's okay. But in the end, it's not a good place to be. So I appreciate that. Well, Beth, man, we're so grateful. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for all the tips, the resources, and the good work that you are doing. And we appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks so much. I love sharing this information. It's so important. So
you have
I
such
appreciate
a nice,
being asked.
soft, easy delivery too. Pardon me, Beth, to interrupt you. You're just so easy to listen to. It's very soothing.
You.
Yeah. I want to take your class, Beth. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's all now, our friends. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Stronger Marriage Connection. We'll see you next time. And Liz?
And do remember, it's the small and simple changes that create a stronger marriage connection. Take care now.
Yeah, we'll see you. Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a few minutes to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. When you hit the like button and leave a comment, your feedback helps us improve the show. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and connect with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and on Facebook at Stronger Marriage. Be sure to share with us what topics you want us to explore or what you loved about today's episode. If you want even more resources to improve your relationship connection, visit our website at strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producers Rex Polanis and Alexis Alcott and the team at Utah State University. And you, our audience, you make this show possible.